uh, I remember a teacher that I was having a hard time. I really was. Math was really no joke for me, and I actually really did need help in math. And you know, as a kid, you're always trying to measure yourself to the other students. And I know the teachers in here, they totally get it. They see children who want to fit in, they want to keep up, they want to stay on pace. But I was having a hard time. And I was a social kid. So I had friends, and my friends noticed, like, man, Richard is really struggling. And a turning point phrase that a teacher spoke to me. She came to me, it's just a simple phrase. She came to me and she said, I want you to know, Richard, I want you to know that you can learn. You can learn. And that sounds simple. It sounds, that's not deep. But for someone who's struggling, and for someone who doesn't feel as though they're going to make it in a particular setting, having a teacher come and say, you can do this, you can learn. I know that I felt at times that, in some of the special ed settings that wasn't really cared for. There wasn't really time invested in me. I was just kind of filling a seat. And the standards, I guess I measured that by the standard for me was very low. There was no real expectation. There was no real, what do you want to do? Do you want to get good grades? What do you want to be? None of those kind of conversations. But the teachers that really made an impact, one was the teacher that said you can learn. Others were the teachers that actually asked me about what I wanted to do in my young life, right? What did I see as success? And they actually had real conversations with me and built around those conversations. So there was a bond there, and I relied on them. And think about it. In school, I mean, now our scenarios are different because we have remote learning in some schools, we have in school, and it's just a lot going on. But for the most part, teachers, you're a significant voice throughout most of the day and most of the week. And so the identity of these students, it's shaped by, a lot of it's shaped by what you say to them or what you don't say to them. Now, that sounds like a lot of pressure, but again, the smallest thing can go the furthest distance. And so, to fast forward, I had teachers who let me know that I could actually test out of special ed. It was like a light at the end of the tunnel. And this was elementary school for me for some time. It was some time ago, but they said you can test out, you can work hard, and you may not be in full gen ed classes. If you get good grades, but if you do improve to the point where we feel that you can, be in general ed for most of the day, that's a possibility. And so I began to work. Effort was everything. That's something that my parents instilled in me, was effort. And I believe there are parents are probably here who, maybe parents, there might be some parents, and if there are parents here, great. But I'll say it goes for parents, and it also goes for teachers as well. Something that impacted me was the idea of effort in the face of hardship was huge, and putting an emphasis on not did you get everything right, did you do it perfectly, putting more emphasis on did you do the best that you could do, the absolute best that you can do. And then so I exercised that once I was given the idea that, like, I can actually level up, I can actually achieve more, I can actually learn and do more. And I eventually transitioned into just full general ed classes. I did have I'll tell you this before I transition. I did have we call them the landladies, but that's probably not what you call them now, but we call them the landladies. They were the recess, the recess ladies, but we call them the landladies. So there was a landlady who just, she knew, I think the recess teachers, they did everything. They were like everything. They, I know they didn't get paid what they should have, because they were like the jack of all trades. But there was this particular lady, and she actually, I would talk to her at recess, and I talked to her about my studies, and I talked to her about just, hardship in the class and stuff like that. And she talked to me about like kids to stay away from. And she was like, you don't want to hang out with those guys because this, that, and the other. And so she kind of really she took me under her wing. And so in my pursuit to win, to succeed, she actually set up time, and I don't even know if she was even supposed to do this, but she actually set up time for me to come in and do work on the weekends with a small group of kids. I don't know if they paid her for that. I know somebody authorized it, or she stole the key because we were in school. And I'll never forget that. And I just share that with you because coming to the state, coming to that city, there wasn't much expected from me. And I know that in some school systems, when we talk about race, there's not a lot expected from my African-American brothers and sisters. Our potential is not always seen. Our greatness is not always seen. And we don't sometimes see it in ourselves because the world around us tells us that nothing's there. And so I just want to encourage everyone here, if they have an opportunity in whatever form of leadership, to just to encourage students and youth to pursue greatness and instill in them that their life has purpose and they can do things. And it carries so much weight. It carries so much weight. It carried weight in my life. So, I went to high school, did okay. And then I went to college for 2 years, went to a community college, and just kind of, I just have a real determination. So I got into like entrepreneurship and stuff like that. And I ended up, I own a couple of companies and I work for the ARC, and things are going really well for me. But I think one thing that I will never forget is just those early on words that were spoken over me in elementary school. Never forget those. And some of those words drive me, and some of those words, well, I'll say they drive me in that aspect of like they're encouraging, but then there are other words that drive me in that aspect of understanding that there are kids who are not being spoken over and are not in a positive way, are not being encouraged, that are not being seen and put in positions to succeed. And so, I'm using all the power that I have to fulfill my passion in career life, but really the main goal for me at working with the ARC and working with the families is to try to help parents instill in their kids a sense of confidence and resilience. I know that in the African-American community, we are a resilient community. Like it's Black History Month. So it's, a lot of times we want to go back, and let me just check my time. We want to go back this month and post pictures of plantations and mutilated backs that have been whipped and all those things. The culture kind of regurgitates that. And I think what we need most of all is reminders around, or spotlights on, the resilience of a people that came here and stolen, came here and built a country for free. And in that, so many great things have come out of it for everyone. And so I have two kids. I'm married. I have two kids, and we have consistent conversations about just the contributions. And this is year-round contributions of our people. There's so much there, and those are conversations that you can be having with students. And I encourage you to just do research. There's so much, I would just call it American history, that can be shared. And just a couple little fun ones that I think are interesting is if anyone in here likes to watch golf, or anyone here likes to play golf, the golf tee was invented by a Black man, which is interesting if you consider what you think of when you watch golf. Tiger Woods was we remember when Tiger stepped on, all that melanin, and it was like, what is this? Like he's winning, and it was this huge thing on ESPN and all the things. And that's great, but still the very tee that everyone plays on was made by a Black man. That's impactful to me. Another one that I think is just really interesting is the steam press in the cleaners. So the steam press that you see used in cleaners was invented by a Black man, which I just think it's very random, just because our culture doesn't typically own dry cleaners. I'm sure everyone gets their shirts dry cleaned. I know I do. I love it. But there's so much contribution that we've provided for this country, and having those conversations with kids and having those conversations with one another can only make us better and help us to see, or maybe help us see the world differently and see people differently. Okay. So it is 8:06. I'm going to do just a little transition into, I told you a little bit about myself, my story, and we touched on some Black history. One of the things that I was asked to talk about was ableism, and just the intersection of ableism and racism, and you can even say sexism. There are all those different, it's pretty weighty. All of the things I just said are pretty heavy things. When supporting families, there are so many things that come up, and I'm a lot of times asked to create spaces where people can express themselves and say, how can we become better? What can the schools do better? What can the teachers do better? And it's a lot. It's a lot. And I think it's hard because, one, we're all working in a system that is very slow, and I feel like doesn't accommodate everyone. And you have teachers who really care about their students. And then you have a system that doesn't cover all the bases for all the communities and all the cultures. And those two things collide. And there's tension there. And so when we're talking about something like ableism, I looked up the definition, and the official definition, because a lot of times in social work, there's like several definitions, and it just depends on the context of the conversation. But for ableism, it's discrimination in favor of able-bodied people. And I had to sit with that as I prepped for this. I had to sit with that, and I have to sit with the feedback and the support that I give in the different meetings. And the question that comes to me is in favor of, or the thought is what sticks out to me, in favor of. Now, discrimination is a heavy word, but what really just keeps jumping out to me is in favor, the three words, in favor of. As you know, as we think about what we do as professionals, as parents, I think that it's important for us to really consider who we're in favor of. And we wake up every morning to hardship. Right now, parents are upset, systems are breaking down, schools are going through a lot. But I just, again, rather than going down the rabbit trail of, who's doing it wrong and who's doing and all the things, my hope is that you can take those three words and sit with those words and ask yourself, who am I doing? Who am I in favor of? Who am I in favor of? Am I in favor of the students? Am I in favor of my co-teachers? Or am I in favor of parents that are frustrated? And if you truly are in favor of those individuals, I believe that even if you don't have the solution to every problem, there is some word of encouragement, some word of hope, some word of acknowledgement that you can find to give them to make the environment more inclusive and less discriminatory. Considering who you're in favor of who you're in favor of can make a difference. And let's have an open mindset with that. So not in favor of just one group, right? In favor of all students, even the ones you don't get along with, or even the ones that drive you crazy. In favor of all teachers, the ones you don't get along with, the ones that drive you crazy, the ones you don't think get it. I believe that each one of us can be a light in those dark places and be a leader and impact those individuals around us. Now I'm going to transition, and my hope is that maybe some of you might have questions for me. I'm here, I'm an open book, but if not, it's been a pleasure to just share and hopefully empower you and impact you in some way.
Richard, thank you so much. There's actually been a fair amount going on in the chat.
Okay. I haven't been watching the chat. I'm so sorry.
No, that's okay. I wouldn't expect you to. And I've been trying to monitor for people who might want to unmute and either ask a question or make a comment. And so I want to call on Penny if you want to unmute. If not, I can read what you wrote in the chat, Penny.
Well, I just was listening to what Richard had to say, because of course this resounds with me because I have a grandson. So, and actually foster children and et cetera. I've had a very long experience with Seattle school system. And when you were talking about how you could earn your way out of your special education class, it just hit a nerve, because the way it was presented to my child was that his behavior had to improve so that he would be worthy of being in general education classes. And of course, I did not like that then. and I don't like it now. And I can tell you that my grandson is now in 7th grade. So he's a middle schooler, but all of his elementary years has been a battle for me to get him into general education classrooms where I believe all children belong, because I don't believe in segregating you according to your disability any more than I do color. And I, many people know me, not everybody knows me, but my grandson happens to be African American and Chippewa Cree. So he suffers from that same problem of being not only disabled, but being racially, profiled, if you want to say that. So it's been an interesting journey. So I appreciate what you're saying, but and as you said, it was a change for you when you came here and realized how different it was. And I'm not a native to Seattle either, so I've been kind of shocked as we've grown in the system. I just am really disappointed, and I find it very frustrating that that I'm still fighting those same battles for my grandson that I was fighting for my children back in the day. So, and I think you're right. I appreciate being in meetings where I feel like we're all on the same page, that, we are there for the students, we are there for the teachers, for everybody, and allowed to participate in that conversation, despite the difficulties of, maybe not being accepted by certain, groups, because, I get the same backwash when I talk. It's because I am, a white woman, and who am I to talk about, race, but it's very much so a part of my family. We're a very diverse and mixed race family. So I do have something to say about that. And I really appreciate your words, Richard. It's very nice to know that there's an advocate out there that is, looking at it through that lens of inclusion.
Penny, thank you so much for sharing that. I really, really appreciate your words. And I just encourage you to keep going.
Yana, you had a couple of questions in the chat. Yana, you're muted. We're not hearing you.
Yeah, it's been a long day. I'm sorry. And thank you, Richard, for your experience and sharing with us, and just opening the doors to things we don't think about every day. And I do have a question that's kind of, you touched on it, but so how did you as a child feel when you were put in a special classroom, separate classroom, to get support that you needed? And then is your feeling about that situation different today?
I'm so glad that you asked that, because I actually left something out. I might have said it, but I think I would have went into it a little more. I'm sorry, I left this out. So yes, I had 3 brothers, and one of my brothers he passed away when I was 14, but he was developmentally, cognitively, and physically disabled. And so I'm a sibling. And with that being said, there was so much attention on his needs and making sure that he had everything. And, there really wasn't any resentment about that. That was our life. Both of my parents worked. They worked for Boeing, and they did everything they could to take care of us. But time was not, they didn't have a lot of time. Right. And so there wasn't really there wasn't really a lot of time to actually think about how they felt, and honestly, I didn't have, I was in touch with my feelings, for the most part, but I think the school factor is where I was most in touch with my feelings, because there were triumphs and what I would say triumphs and failures that affect you in that space, right? So, Richard, you got an F. Okay, that's now I'm feeling some kind of way about that. Or Richard, you're actually improving. You got a C+. And okay, I'm getting it. Like, so, my connection with my school friends and my teachers was a little bit more significant than or just different. I won't say significant, just different than with my brothers. When I got home, it was like, okay, it's family time, and school was kind of put on pause. So hopefully that answers your question. There wasn't a whole lot of dialogue about, Richard, how do you feel about, the situation you're in, from my brothers. I was the youngest, so I was low on the totem pole too. So it wasn't a whole lot of like, introspective time, you know. Does that give you?
Yeah, I was just thinking, because what caught my ear was that you said that you wanted to test out of special education, and we talk about special education today as that's a service, it's not a place, right? So I was just thinking, okay, so there was a feeling that you wanted to succeed, right? And then I was wondering if you had any feelings or recognized at the time that you were really being segregated from your peers based on your disability needs.
Well, so here's the thing. Okay, thank you for elaborating. I would say, the overwhelming feeling that I had in special ed was, I'm not sure I belong here, because it was the way that I entered into it, and what I was seeing around me. So there were individuals with disabilities in the classroom who were asleep, like their head down on the desk, like literally the little drool puddle on the desk, not engaged at all. And then there were kids in there that were very discouraged, like tried to convince me, like, what are you talking about? Like, test out, like, what, we're in here. This is where and so there was just those young conversations that just, they didn't sit well with me. And so that's why even the idea, I believe, that even that testing out conversation would come up, is because I would express that to teachers. Like, I'd ask them, like, what do I have to do to not be in this classroom? Is there something that I can do to not be here and to be with the majority of my friends in the gen ed classroom? So I didn't really look at it from the kids' perspective. I didn't look at it as, oh, this is a support and this is going to help you grow. And all I knew was, I don't know. I don't think I belong here. And if I do, I'm not really seeing the supportive aspects of it. But there were teachers that were very supportive, and they helped me grow, because I did need help, right? I did need help, and I did need to grow. And there are teachers that came alongside me and affirmed me and helped me achieve the goals that I knew I could, with the effort, and that was for the most part. There are some teachers that honestly, they could care less. That's how I felt. It just wasn't much effort there on their part for me. But hopefully that adds value to, or that's an answer that adds value. Okay.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Yeah.
Rachel, I see you put a comment in the chat. I don't know if you wanted to say anything. Okay, just saying hi.
This is Sherilyn. Sorry, can I just say, Richard, if you didn't see it, the safety door on elevators was invented by a Black man.
Okay.
In the late 1800s, and he lived the last part of his life, it's in there, but in Seattle. And one quote says that, it's thought at one time it was believed he was the wealthiest Black person in the Pacific Northwest. Unfortunately, he lost his money. And it took, just about 100 years for him to get recognized and get into the Inventors Hall of Fame. But Alexander Miles.
See, thank you so much for sharing that. I did not know that. But what I do know is there are so many Alexander Miles out there. And I just really believe that the more we're sharing that with students of color, and students, we're all of color, but students of multicultural backgrounds, the more encouragement and the more inspiration and the more they can have something to grab a hold of. I will say, that is one feeling, if we're talking about how I felt when I was in special ed and all this, that hopelessness was very near. It just, I mean, it was present. And, you know, and that's like on a, you know, emotional, and some people would say even like on a spiritual, like it permeates, you know, some feelings permeate an atmosphere. So you can come into an atmosphere and it's just like, wow, there's a party in here. There's joy in here. Okay. Well, it was not that. It was not that at the time. There was a sense of hopelessness, but I know that these truths about things that people that look like me have done shifts. It shifts the atmosphere. It did then, and it still does. Like, thank you for sharing that.
So Christy just wrote in the chat, I wonder what happened to the kids who didn't escape that room.
I mean, I don't want to, I guess, I mean, I'm friends with some of them. Some of them just went on to go to school, but unfortunate. And I don't want to say it's because of special ed. I want to say it's probably because of what was instilled in them and the choices that they made. So there are many factors, but the individuals that I'll say there was one person, and I'm not gonna say his name, but there's one person who literally tried to, this is bizarre, literally was trying to convince me to just accept, we're in special ed. You can't really, you're not gonna really learn much. You can't really learn like everyone else. You can't really excel. Just accept it. And I remember just completely rejecting it. And it's because of some of the words the teachers had spoken to me. And I just, it was just in me. I just was like, nah, I just know that there's more, and, and I want to do more. But I'll say that individual, he actually, he continued through school, but he ended up dropping out, and, he has severe addiction issues. And he's never really recovered from that. And I don't want to say that's because of the special ed program, and I don't want to say that it's because of that teacher. But I will say that, I can't help to think if there was someone there that took a little more time with him, to carry him along and encourage him and instill words in him that can help him see his potential. Maybe his outcomes could have been differently, but he has responsibility to take for the choices he makes. But, at those early years, I mean, we're like sponges, we soak up everything around us. So, yeah.
I see a raised hand. I don't see whose hand it is, but if you have your hand raised, just unmute yourself.
This is Pam. It's Pam, Janice. This kind of segues into my question, which is, things that I've observed myself directly and that I've heard others have observed, just how different the treatment is, right, for students and their families based on maybe race and privilege.
Mm-hmm.
So families who have the resources and the time
Mm-hmm.
tend to get better services. So how can we as an organization kind of undo that and work to support those other students who aren't getting those resources that they need? And what I know the ARC does a lot of program support. So,
yeah.
How can we connect with organizations and who else is doing that work so that we can change that?
Pam, thank you for asking that. I would start to say that, yes, Black and white kids are treated differently. There are kids with privilege that get a pass, or they're perceived differently. I know that one thing that comes up, just to kind of, rather than just be general, I'll give you a specific scenario, is you look at Black boys, high octane, I would say, high octane Black boys. A lot of times because of the level of energy that they have and how that affects their ability to sit and listen for hours in a day, they are put in a position of being problem children, or a hassle, or mischievous. And those words are kind of spoken. Whereas energetic white boys at times are just very energetic. That's what he just has a lot of energy. He's not mischievous. He's not, problematic. He's not a distraction. And we just understand he has a lot of energy, and we just have to find out ways to help him get his energy out. That's what we need to do. And that is very consistent. That just those two sides of the coin is that, the higher the melanin you have, the more of a problem you can be. The less melanin you have, the more accepting of the possibilities. Like, maybe he's not a problem kid. Maybe maybe the reason why he keeps talking back to the teacher is he had a really hard time at home. Let's talk to his parents and figure out what his home life looks like and try to support him. Whereas our kids, they just, we need to reprimand you, and you probably do have, a poor home life, and, we need to figure this out, and so they end up in the office more, they end up suspended more, and just, it's unfortunate. So that's the dilemma. As far as the resources at the ARC, we are there to help parents unpack these different scenarios, because it's not, every teacher is not the same, every classroom is not the same, every situation is not the same. They are all unique. And so a lot of times you have parents who will rush into, oh, this teacher is racist, or, oh, the systemic problems just need to stop because it's affecting our whole life. Whereas, but really what it is, okay, number one, that your child hasn't been assessed properly. You are not receiving support around how to assess accommodations for him to again support him. Triggers, you're not assessing what triggers could be in the classroom that bring this, so let's look at those things. And sometimes you can get those things together and see results. Other times teachers are racist, systems are biased, and so we help differentiate what is actually going on, and try to support the family move forward. I know that Open Doors for multicultural families, they do the same type of work. I've done a lot of collaboration with people that have worked there. And we're big on just listening to the community and creating collaborative events where people can come and share the services that they do. But I hope that answers your question.
Sherilyn, you have your hand raised.
I actually, I'm shocked. Rachel Rose just shared, if I may, that when her son joined the, where am I finding this? African American Male Achievement Council through the Seattle Public Schools, they asked the Kings, which is how these young men are referred to, how many that had an IEP, and every hand raised. Mm-hmm. And my question actually, Dr. Torres, is how can our PTSA has that hit the intersection of racism and disability is incredibly recognized by us. How can we help? Is there a space for us to be able to help with those shocking statistics? And of course, I'm not saying an IEP is a bad thing at all.
It's not a bad thing.
I
didn't want to cut you off. Go continue.
No. I think I think that piece of information shocked many of us, even as we know that there's the over-indexing. And when you bring in a school to prison pipeline and you bring in, I don't want to have, or information we have gotten back from community meetings, for myself, I'm going to say secondhand, that having a child, an African-American, having a Black child labeled with a disability is putting them in some sort of a danger because systems fail them. I just really, the goal of this PTSA is about students with disability, students.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, number one, the how can I help is important. Just having that, a sincere how can I help is very important. I think that a cultural humility, being humble and understanding that, the students that are in the class, the African-American students that are in the classroom, they all have a story, and trying to understand, I know that time is limited. You have so many hours in a day, right? And it's, and they're hard hours because you're trying to meet everyone's needs. But I really believe that there should be, some self-assessing of systems and how they can become more efficient, given the feedback that parents continually do give. And I don't believe that the pressure should be on the teachers so consistently. I really look at teachers as like the front line. They're like the front line soldiers who are like trying to support the students. I think it's a conversation for higher levels about are the programs and systems efficient, and are they bearing good fruit within the community and within the families. Often, most of the families that I work with have a tumultuous situation, and so I see it time and time again. I think as teachers and staff, I think just it's the context that you put the kids in. They need to learn. They need to know that there's hope. They need to know that there are people that are rooting for them. And I think the narrative has been very, it's just divisive, right? You have a lot of, parents fighting teachers and teachers fighting parents. And then you have students who are taking cues from the teachers, or taking cues from the parents. And so it's a war zone. And I just really believe that, being the example of someone who wants, as a teacher, someone who wants to bring unity and in a problematic and hard space can impact the culture, and it can impact our school classrooms and districts. And I would say I would start there. As far as what could you do tomorrow? What could you do this week, right? We get really caught up in the minutia of things, but I really believe that a teacher has a profound platform to steer a classroom or a person in the right or wrong direction. So just figuring out what that is for a student, and trying with everything in you to bring that home is what I would share.
Richard, I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight and being so open and personal in your sharing with us tonight. It's both remarkable, I think, and powerful. And I just want to say, on behalf of our PTSA and also on behalf of myself personally, thank you. And this is a conversation, that we have a lot in our PTSA, and it's very helpful to have you come and join us and help us, in how we can think better about these issues and grow, both each of us individually and as an organization. And so we deeply appreciate your words tonight and your presence tonight. And thank you again.
Well, wow, I'm humbled by all of those words. I really, really appreciate that. And I appreciate everyone here who, again, has taken time out of their day to listen and to ask questions and to be here with all of us and be here with me. Thank you for having me.
And I'm going to stop the recording now. And I apologize, Richard, that I did that in the middle while you're talking. I had forgotten to start at the beginning.
Okay.
So
It's okay.